Alrighty. Are we being heard out in the universe or what? Because we got a lot to talk about. Just setting up my phone so I can get the chat open.
We are on track to hit a 1.5% growth increase by the end of the quarter. If we reduce executive salaries.
Sorry about that. That was an ad playing. Bullshit, all fake. No, it's not fake at all. Yeah, I just started it, so that's why there's no people in here. We got about 88 right now, so. I know, guys. I'm so sorry. It's been a rough couple weeks. Let's put it that way. But it's all over with, so who cares at this point? But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Now, just to confirm, can you guys see my screen right now? We're on Mike's weather page, showing a bunch of different charts, a bunch of cool colors. Joey Patterson, yes, 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 yes. Nope. Rosa, nope. You can't see anything, Rosa? Nice to meet you, Unique. Can't see. All right, here. I'll fix that right now. And there we go. How about now? Can we see stuff now? There we go. I love yeses. Yup, yes, yep, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. Got it. All right. Not to play down this situation, but this is very serious. This is not a joke. And we're going to try to dissect this and figure out exactly why these models have this thing shooting up to the north with about 60 miles to go between the last of the Bahamas. And as you can see here, these letter M's right here. That means major hurricane. Now, I brought up Google Earth. This is what they're talking about right here. So, they're saying this thing is going to make a northern hook right after Grand Baham International Airport. So, this, from this area here to West Palm Beach, is a 60-mile distance. And I'll even show you. Here we go. Boom. Boom. 59 miles. So what they're claiming is that this thing's going to be a Category 5, and within this airport and West Palm Beach, Florida, that's where this thing is going to make a hook. Now, I want you to keep in mind, a Category 5 storm 75 miles out from the eye of the hurricane is the strongest of the winds. So if this does make a northern hook within this area, it's not going to matter. West Palm Beach will hit Category 3 to 4 wind speeds, all sorts of that stuff. So it doesn't matter whether it hooks up here, whether it hooks up here. Florida will get part of this storm. And you know what? I can't figure out why this thing is going to hook north. I'm looking at all the pressures in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see a flat line pressure right here going, leaving about North Carolina over top of the storm. And then you see this bit over Florida. All I'm seeing is this storm moving west, and not only west, but it took a dip south. Now, there are parts of Puerto Rico. A friend of mine sent me some video about Puerto Rico that is completely not Puerto Rico, I'm sorry, the Bahamas, that are completely destroyed. Like, everything's leveled, flat land, on the ground. You can see the ocean from miles away. Not a good thing. I'll do a follow-up video on that in the near future, but this thing does not seem to be hooking north as of right now. I know we are on the 1st right now. It's Sunday. Monday was supposed to be landfall. That has been delayed till about Tuesday. So what we're going to look at now is this. That last frame right there is just not going to load. So here's where the hurricane is right now. Look at that eye. That eye right there is about 75 miles in diameter. And it's currently passing over the West End, Freeport, Grand Bahama Islands. And it already passed Little Abaco Island. So, and I measured this. This is 60 miles from the end of the Bahamas to West Palm Beach. Now, again, I want you guys to think about this. A Category 5 hurricane, even if it makes it to right here and then goes north, we have a wind field of over probably close to 80 miles when it comes to a Category 5. Which means that West Palm Beach will be hit, not a direct hit, if this thing does go north, but there's plenty of plots that say this thing is still going to go straight into Florida. So I'm trying to figure out why the pressures are showing that this thing is going to go north, and I'm not seeing any of that. I can't see how this storm is going to shoot north. I could be wrong. And you guys know I'm the first to admit when I'm wrong about something like this, but this storm does not seem to be making any northern hook whatsoever. Let me get you a better view right here. All right, so this is probably our most accurate view of where the storm is as of right now. Look at that eye wall. That eye wall is massive. The hurricane itself is as healthy as it gets. Category 5. We're looking at wind speeds of, let me get to it. Sorry, I kind of just threw this together in the last couple minutes. So we could see it's crossing the midsection of the Bahamas right now. The last section of the Bahamas will be in the next few hours. But we're talking in the next 24 hours, if this thing does not make a hook up to the north, we could be seeing a direct hit on Florida, and that's West Palm Beach, that's Daytona, that's Jupiter, that's basically everything to the west of Lake Okeechobee, like we've been talking about for a long time. Let me check out the chat real quick. It will not turn. It's a Category 1, which will go through. It's all fake. It's not fake, dude. There's nothing fake about this hurricane. And you can see it right here. There is absolutely nothing fake about this hurricane. You could say that all you want, but when it hits Florida, or if it goes up the East Coast, you will see very quick that this is not fake. It's Nathan. Yes, it is possible because the initial reports were that this thing was going to hit Florida, right near West Palm Beach, Daytona, Lake Okeechobee, and then move up the center of Florida. And then last minute, we started seeing. Oh, by the way, this thing is at 224 miles per hour. That is the current wind speed. 195 knots is equal to 224 miles an hour. We are well within a Category 5 storm right now. Just want to make that known. And if we watch this closely, you could see that Tropical Tidbits has this thing hooking north right after the Bahamas, and then riding right up the coast, and then possibly hitting the outer banks of the Carolinas. Now, again, I don't see that hook happening yet. Now, if we're talking about a 60-mile radius where this thing is going to turn up and start hitting the outer banks of California, or not California, the North and South Carolina, just look at it. Just look at the half on, half off land. We always talk about this. If you have the eye wall that's half on the coast and half off the coast, it's a recycling motion. So which means it's going to ride up the East Coast and completely devastate anything it touches. This is a Category 5 storm. We are at 944 pressure-wise. Not to mention this little thing out here in the Pacific, but we're not going to get into that now. But as this thing rolls through, you'll see again. This is the island it's at right now. It's actually backtracking, so you got to wait a little bit. Right there is where it is. 949, 946, 944, riding right up the tail end, east tail end of Florida into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And then the Outer Banks may get a weaker hurricane, but with the momentum behind this thing, it's a whole different story. Now, I don't know if the... Let me find the spaghetti plots. Let's get those. Those are important. Excuse me. Yeah, it's been a long week, guys. I've been sick. Oh, man. It's been a rough couple weeks. All right, so these are the current spaghetti plots as of right now. There she is, Type X. Thank you, babe. You're in there. All right, awesome. I am sick now. Bedweather freak, don't be sick. We just gotta we gotta figure out this information and verify it. That's all. And you can also see this this purple line right here. This one spaghetti plot has this thing plowing right into Florida and then right back out. So not every single spaghetti plot has this thing churning right before Florida and then going up to the Outer Banks. And not only that, but this is a Category 5 storm. Even if this thing were out here 100 miles offshore, you're going to get tropical force winds in Florida, no doubt about it. So this isn't about missing Florida. It's about whether or not it's going to make landfall in Florida. Now, again, if the eye wall semi-hits Florida and then rides up the East Coast, that is worst case scenario besides a direct landfall. If this thing hits Florida and we don't have that northern turn, we're going to see areas of Florida that are going to be we're not going to be able to live there for a long time. That's the point I'm trying to make. So these spaghetti plots are changing on an hourly basis. And we can see right here. Check out up in this area right here. Does that not look like it's going south? Look at the eye wall. Watch my mouse. The eye wall. It's dipping south. It's not dipping north or hooking north. It's going south. So I'm a little bit confused about why the spaghetti plots have this thing turning north in between the 60-mile radius between the Bahamas and Florida, which wouldn't really change anything. A Category 5 in between a 60-mile-an-hour radius is going to affect Florida and the Bahamas. In fact, a subscriber of mine has sent me video of the Bahamas, and part of the Bahamas are just completely flatlined. They are done. There's nothing there. House is flattened. It's just like it's just like a blank island right now, and it's very sad. Thank God it missed Puerto Rico, but we did see that northern. It came up over the north side of Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and Cuba, and then went right into the Bahamas, and now it looks like it's dipping down south. That's what's confusing me. And there's, like I said, the pressures above. I don't have it pulled up right now, but there's a high pressure system that's blanketing down slowly. And that could be part of why they think that this thing is going to churn out into the ocean. But if this thing hits the Outer Banks, it's going to be a category 2 to 3. That's going to be devastating alone. But we're talking about a category 5 hurricane, guys. The last time we saw this was Hurricane Michael, and it took them a year to realize that it was not a 4 and it was a 5. This thing is a straight up 5. We're talking 224 miles per hour. That is no joke whatsoever. Yes, Katrina, Elaine, Felix. The high pressure does seem very, very sustainable for a Category 5. Don't get me wrong, this is a Category 5 storm. Look at this thing. Just look at the eye wall alone. The eye wall alone is about 70 miles wide, and then the wind field alone on a Category 5 could stick out 100 miles an hour. Or 100 miles, rather. Yeah, that's insane. That eye wall is absolutely insane. It's a perfect circle. That means healthy hurricane. The only thing we can hope for is an eye wall replacement cycle, but we are so close to Florida that I don't know. The only thing I can notice within this chart right here is this little area right here where it's not black. It's a little bit of that burgundy red that could sweep around and then cause an eye wall replacement cycle, but I don't know, guys. I really don't know. This thing really seems like it's going to go into Florida, and if it does make a north hook, it's going to make a north hook as the eye wall is parallel to Lake Okeechobee. That's my phone. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. This thing is dipping south. They're talking about all this northern movement, but the thing is moving south. I mean, just check out this island right here. And then watch. This thing is dipping down below the main islands of Bahamas. And then what is it going to do? It's going to come down here and then go north? That's going to put Florida at even more of a risk. Now, you guys got to remember, this storm was said to be a nothing burger. This thing was supposed to be a tropical depression being sheared off by the shear winds, and now we have a Category 5 about to hit Florida, less than 300 miles away. We're probably about 170 miles away from Florida right now. And within the next 24 hours, Florida is going to start feeling this wind field. And that's the important part, because even though it turns north, it could turn north for all I know. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing any of the proof that this thing is going to turn north, besides the fact that there is a flatline pressure coming down that could push it out into the Atlantic. But these spaghetti plots, they don't seem to match. Every other chart I look at has this thing moving right into Florida. As you can see, this green one right here. This thing has it going right through the central part of Florida and then doing a U-turn and then coming back out. So it's all a matter of time. It's all timing. And then you got this purple spaghetti plot going here that brings it up to the northern, central northern part of Florida and then into Georgia and then right out through the southern part of South Carolina. And then you have about 70 to 80% of the spaghetti plots bringing this thing out north before it hits Florida. But again, you guys got to realize this is a Category 5. This is not going to be something that just swoosh and misses Florida and you're not going to get anything from it. That's not the way this works. Category 5 storms are named Category 5 storms for a reason. And that's because of how big they are. I mean, just look at this thing. You tell me what direction that's moving. Right now it's moving west. That's a southern movement right there. Still going south. This thing is dipping south into the Bahamas. You have a lot of energy building up in the Gulf, and you have an overflow of moisture going over top of Florida through Georgia and South Carolina right now, which is moving out into the ocean, which could be the factor that plays that this thing swoops out with that moisture. But this thing has so much momentum right now that I don't know. I don't see that happening. I see Florida getting its brunt of this storm, and then it's going to start moving north because the pressure, it's all about the high pressures. It's the Bermuda Atlantic pressure, it's the jet stream, and it's the lows and highs that go on in the United States that control these hurricanes. Now, you can make estimated guesses. Now, they've had these spaghetti plots out here for, oh man, days now, but this is the most current information as far as Florida goes. So you can match the colors. Hurricane warning is in the red. That is Fort Pierce, part of West Palm, part of Highland Beach, part of Fort Lauderdale. Yellow's tropical storm watch. And you could see that goes all the way into Dundee and Sebring, Highland Beach. So tropical storm winds are going to happen in Florida. There's no doubt about it. So there's people that are wondering whether or not this thing is going to swing up and just completely miss Florida and it's going to be a nice sunshiny day. It's not going to happen, guys. This thing is way too big. It's got way too much momentum. It's one of the strongest hurricanes we've ever seen. In fact, it's battling Labor Day from 1935, which hit 185 miles per hour. This thing has already surpassed that. This is the strongest hurricane we have ever seen. 224 mile per hour winds along the eye wall. That is why the Bahamas are getting completely destroyed right now. Check out the chat. All right, South Carolina weather. What kind of weather would South Carolina have? Okay, so again, as far as the spaghetti plots go, I can't really give you an estimate on that yet because all the information is saying that this thing is going to churn north. But look at this. I want you to see this right now on Tropical Tidbits. Right now we are 9/1. So it is Sunday, the day before Labor Day. This is where Dorian is right now as we speak. You move into the second. Dorian slightly moves north. But look at these numbers, guys. I want to show you something here. If I can get it right. There we go. 135 miles per hour after passing the Bahamas. And then we'll move on to the next day. Look at this. It's even stronger now. And it does show Ventus Sky showing this thing moving north, but you're going to tell me that Port St. Lucie, Miami, Orlando, they're not going to feel this? There's no way. Florida will be hit by this hurricane. There's no doubt about it. And then if it does churn this way, maybe Georgia and South Carolina could get some relief from this, but it's going to come up this way and then hit the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So it's a very hard storm to reach. And I can't stop looking at this chart because this thing is dipping to the south. And the more it dips to the south, the more it's going to take for it to make its turn up to the north. And this thing is moving west. There is no, in fact, it should be on this page. Maybe not. Let's see. We got 195 knots. 910 millibars, guys. That is such a low amount of pressure that, like I said before, this could be the strongest hurricane we have seen since 1935, Hurricane Labor Day. and it's moving northwest at 10 miles an hour. But again, when you look at the actual chart, it is not moving north. This thing is dipping south. And thank you to everyone who just sent donations. I'm so sorry I didn't recognize that. I appreciate it very much. Very, very much. Nick Angelo, thank you so much. And then there was another one in there I saw. Where are you, bud? I know who you are. Yes, the pressure was at 882, which means that it could have been one of the lowest millibar in pressure hurricanes in history. Now remember, just 7-8 days ago, this thing was nothing but a tropical depression that was going to be sucked up by the Atlantic Ocean, and now all of a sudden we have a Category 5 barreling its way towards Central Florida. What's up, the kid meteorologist? How are you, my friend? How you doing, Katoya? Wilma was as strong as Dorian. 224? Yeah, that could be possible. Very possible. Raymond, thank you so much. Is Fort Lauderdale area safe from direct landfall? Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You know what? Honestly, it's hard to say because every chart I look at is showing a different set of data, and that's what's so frustrating. I mean, unless I was in an airplane looking down at this thing, it's just it's very odd how they expect this thing to shoot north after passing the Bahamas with a 60-mile distance between Bahamas and Florida, and then that thing is just going to shoot up between that gap. But again, it's a Category 5 hurricane. Just the eye wall alone is like 20 to 30 miles long, and then the strong wind field goes out to about 80 and 90 miles. So there's no doubt about it that Florida's going to get hit with severe storm surge and very high wind speeds. There's no doubt about it. Yes, Nikki, very frustrating. I've been trying to figure this out for days now. Oh man, the sea temperatures by the Bahamas are I'm going to say they're pushing 90 degrees. That's why this thing is going to explode once, if it hasn't already. That's why this thing became a Category 5, is because it hit these Bahama waters, which are sometimes 90 degrees, and it just blows up. I mean, all you have to do is look at the shape of this hurricane and the eye wall alone. It almost looks fake. It looks like it's something that someone drew up for a movie, and you know what I mean? I mean, look at the rotation of this. Where do you guys see this going? Do you think this thing is going to just all of a sudden hook north and go up towards the Carolinas within the next 24 hours? This thing is barreling through the Bahamas right now, devastating everything in its path. The eye wall is so big that if you were to be in the eye wall, you could look up and see sunlight. And then within 2 hours, you're getting crushed by the other side of the hurricane. That's how these things work. It's incredible. Norfolk, Virginia. You know what? It's hard to say. Let's take a look at some maps here and see if if okay. All right, let's play the what if game, okay? So if this thing does pass the last island of the Bahamas, and we have 60 miles right here, and all of a sudden it goes boom, and it just starts shooting upwards, and then following the contour of South Carolina, North Carolina, and the Outer Banks, I think the Outer Banks would be that push out to the ocean. So Virginia, maybe southeast Virginia, could see some, um, you know, effects from this. Certainly not Category 5 effects, because the more north it goes, the colder the water is, the less power the hurricane is going to have. But right now, we are in water that is upwards of 90 degrees, 85, 86, 87. That is absolutely hurricane weather. And this is the biggest hurricane we've seen in years. This battle's Irma, this battle's Harvey, this battle's Maria. This is the same exact thing, just in a different spot. This is a massive, massive storm. Massive. Hashtag bad kids. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in the near future. Don't worry. Yes, I have. I've been in a few hurricanes. I was in Sandy. I was in Hurricane George, Hurricane Mitch when I lived in Florida. Uh, I lived in Florida for a bit, and I remember I was young. It was like 1999, right when Columbine happened. And I remember my dad taping up the windows and doing all that stuff. I was a little young at the time. But yes, I've been through hurricanes. Big time. What are the chances it follows Hurricane Sandy's path? Now that I don't know, because Sandy came from a different direction. Sandy came almost across the Atlantic Ocean. It didn't really ride up the coast and then hook into New Jersey. It was kind of out in the ocean more. This thing, I'm not kidding, it's barreling right towards Florida. And if it does hook north, that is just like, it almost defies the laws of weather, if you know what I mean. It's the timing. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's the timing of when this thing is going to, when the pressure above it, the Bermuda Atlantic pressure is clearly pushing this thing towards Florida, but then we have other pressures coming down from Canada, and then we have this mix going up in the Gulf that could potentially force it out this way. But I don't see this making it there in time for this hurricane to not at least touch Florida. It's very hard for me to see, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll be on here and I will tell you right away that I was wrong. But right now, we are all looking at the same thing, and what we're seeing is a Category 5 hurricane moving totally west, if not southwest, towards Okeechobee in Florida. Thanks, Juan. Yeah. No, I'm glad people get to see this because it is what it is. I mean, there's no getting away from this. I mean, some news stations aren't even talking about this storm, and it's literally just a couple hundred miles away from Florida. And absolutely, I agree with that. Florida can fight off a hurricane. They've had their share of hurricanes. Naples, we all got to remember Irma. This thing is not going to pull an Irma because Irma, if you remember, was down in this area towards Cuba, and everybody was expecting it to churn north once again to the east side of Florida. But guess what happened? It went underneath Florida, came right up the west coast. So no longer do I trust these spaghetti plots that show a dramatic turn in an earthquake or Oh my God. Hurricane of this size. Sorry, I was looking at hurricanes before. With this amount of distance to go, I just don't see how this thing is going to make a complete U-turn and shoot straight up into the outer banks of the Carolinas. This thing is still moving west at a very, consistent movement. In fact, let's see if we can get closer to this thing. There we go. We'll let this load a bit. The news is not covering this until it's too late. I mean, you got Joe Cantor is in Vero Beach right now. You got Weather Channel people all over the east coast of Florida, and they put their heavy hitters where this hurricane's going to hit. So that's something I recommend you guys look out for when you're watching the Weather Channel, where they put certain people, especially according to their status as far as being on the Weather Channel. Jim Cantor is a very high-ranking meteorologist. Wherever he is, that's where the most damage is going to be done. He wants to be on camera. He wants to be, he wants his windsuit flapping around. He wants to brace himself with his legs and show all the wind and water hitting him. So they're going to put him in the most vulnerable spot. And if this thing is going to miss Florida, why is he in Florida? That's what I'm saying. If anyone's going to be put anywhere according to the spaghetti plots, why not put everyone in Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina? Or even fly them the 60 miles into the Bahamas. You don't see any of the Weather Channel people there because they know they have nowhere to go. Just like the people of the Bahamas, they have nowhere to go. They are getting decimated right now. It's horrible. What's happening to the Bahamas right now is exactly what happened to Puerto Rico with Hurricane Maria 2 years ago. The Bahamas will not be a vacation spot for at least a year. I mean, look at this. That is moving south. I don't care what anyone says. This thing is tracking south. And now if it's going to do a little horseshoe movement and then move up, that's one thing. We don't have enough data yet. All we have is tropical tidbits to look at. And let's get to a chart on tropical tidbits and show what they show. So check this out. So we got the GFS here. I'm going to change it to 850 millibar in wind. We'll let that load real quick. And you guys can still see everything I'm seeing, right? I just want to make sure. My name is Jeff. Honestly, you know what, man? I'm trying to figure that out myself. I'm still working on that. I'm not too sure about exactly what it is yet. I'm trying to find out. And, I'll let you know as soon as I know. But as long as we're seeing the same page here, tropical tidbits, you can see the low pressure is at 958. And even tropical tidbits has this thing passing the last island of the Bahamas. And then, yeah, we got to wait for it to load. Unfortunately, the loading. So they're saying by the 2nd, which is tomorrow, this thing should be hooking north. But keep in mind, this is a Category 5 storm. Look at the purple lines all over Florida. This is beyond tropical force winds, guys. This is 100-mile-an-hour winds. The center of the storm is 224. you get any purple on Florida, that's going to be at least 120 miles an hour. That would be like equivalent to a Category 3. And then as we move up Florida, if this is the case, you're going to see northern parts of Florida, including Jacksonville, getting hit even harder. That's why it gets so frustrating sometimes, because they change these forecasts so much. And I base my forecasts off the pressures going on around the hurricane, and I do not see anything that's going to stop this thing from moving west. And there's nothing here. There's no high pressures. There's nothing. And for those of you that have been watching my videos, you know that high pressures influence low pressures. But when you have a hurricane of this size, it often does not influence it as much as usual. 946, 944, right there. Even as it's moving north into the upper state, like the upper part of Florida, just check out that part of the ring right there. Those are easily over 100-mile-an-hour winds. So there's people that are thinking that Florida is going to be spared by this hurricane, and it's just simply not true. It's not going to happen. This thing will affect Florida in many ways, especially the counterclockwise spin. Now, think about this for a second. Now, if we start seeing landfall right around here, remember, this thing's spinning this way. So this thing is kicking water into mid to north Florida in very devastating ways. This is going to be a storm surge of 8 to 10 feet if this stays true. If this thing directly barrels into Florida, we're talking 20 feet of water. Storm surge, plus, not to mention, a foot of rain. This could be a very devastating situation. And again, you guys know me. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm showing you what I'm seeing. I'm showing you, what I've based my info off of in the past, which is mostly right. I mean, I am the first to come on here and tell you when I'm wrong, but, when you see a storm still at 957 pressure passing Georgia and then South Carolina, I mean, tell me that you don't think this storm is going to smash right into South Carolina and then North Carolina. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, this storm has changed every single day for the last 3 days, which tells me that even the experts don't even know what this thing is going to do. So for them to put out charts like this, sorry, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Oh, by the way, yeah, I want to show you this. So, Hurricane Allen, 1980, 190 miles an hour. So, officially, that was the strongest, but the strongest landfall hurricane was Labor Day, 1935, 185 mile an hour winds. We are right now at 224. So, we have beaten the Labor Day hurricane. And then when you go to a site like Tropical Tidbit or Ventus Sky here, just check this out. Do you see this thing hooking north? Maybe a little bit here, but regardless, just look at these wind speeds. 110 miles an hour, Port St. Lucie, Palm Bay, 67 miles an hour the day before. We moved to the 4th, and then all of a sudden, sorry about that. Just look at the color. Like, you don't see this color all the time. 110 miles an hour, Jacksonville, coast of Jacksonville. The entire coast of Florida is about to get a run for its money. That's for sure. Checking out chat. 1935 Labor Day weekend disastrous. Yes, it absolutely was. Port St. Lucie has nuke plants built in 1968. Yep. And it's funny how they put nuke plants right next to water or rivers all the time. There's always risks for tornadoes with hurricanes. Yes. That is yes. The answer is yes there, sir. What would you do if you were living right now in Florida, Brian? You will cover it like an extreme meteorologist or evacuate. I would stay put. I'm not going to evacuate something like this. Whether it's the death of me or I survive it and I get to look at devastation. Like, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, of course, all my friends and family would be like, Brian, get out of there now. Please leave. My grandma lives in Florida. She's been calling me nonstop. Um, I had my Uncle Michael living in Florida last year with Hurricane Michael being a Category 5 hitting Florida. He unfortunately passed away right before that hurricane. Um, I would stay. I would definitely stay. What about Tampa? Honestly, the looks of it, Tampa, I mean, besides some rain and some wind, again, it's still up in the air. If this thing does not hook north, it's going to go straight through Florida, and that could mean Tampa. But I don't want to scare people in Tampa because there's no reason to yet. We still have a couple days before we know exactly what this thing's going to do. Maybe 48 hours, maybe a little less, 36 hours. But all I know is that this is one of the biggest hurricanes I've ever seen in my entire life. And it came out of nowhere. And I told you guys I've been talking with a meteorologist from South Florida, Craig Setzer. You can look him up. My Twitter feed is full of posts with him and I talking back and forth, and even he didn't think that this thing would turn into this. This is a different story. This is a whole different monster than what we've been seeing lately. And 2017 was 1 year. 2018 it was a little calm, and now out of nowhere, September 1st we have a Category 5. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a long September and November as well. And I've said this in the past. I said this in 2017. They're going to have to change the months of hurricane season because of the change of the pole shift, all sorts of things. The equator is changing. A lot of things are changing, not just in the U.S., but in the world as a whole. So we're going to start seeing different things happen in different places. Nick Angelo, thank you again, man. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry, guys. That's my phone. Oh, yeah, Justin Verlander threw a no hitter today while we're talking about a Category 5 hurricane. Ay, caramba. Let me get back to YouTube so I can see the chat here.
Want a body that stands out in a crowd?
No, I don't. This should show people that you can trust. You can't trust MSNBC. That's why. You know. Joey Patterson, what do you mean Xbox? I have one, but it's not on. Dark Dominic, yes, it's possible. Yes, it could hook. It very well could hook, but I'm just not seeing it yet. I mean, Ventus Sky is showing the hook. We got these charts showing it still tracking south. And even if it does hook, like I said, it's not going to put Florida out of harm's way. This is a huge storm. It's already. This was the 29th. Let's get to the 1st. The end of the 1st, right there. Look at the size of this storm. It says it's going to pass the last island of the Bahamas and then hook north. This thing is about 300 miles wide. This will impact Florida. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. Moto. Yep. This is my stream phone. Do you think it will hit Florida, Fort Lauderdale? Honestly, it's hard to say. It's very, very hard to say because all these different charts are saying so many different things. And then when you turn on the Weather Channel, they're saying a whole separate thing. I mean, just look. Look at what you're seeing right now. Where is this thing tracking? Do you see that thing moving north at all? It's dipping down into the Bahamas. That's why I keep bringing up Irma. Everybody, including the governor of Florida, moved every person from the east coast of Florida to the west to avoid Irma, which was guaranteed to ride up the east coast of Florida. And then what happened? That thing dipped right underneath Florida, went right up the west coast, and hit Naples. Thank God it clipped Cuba, or we would not have a Naples, Florida right now. So you can't rely on this stuff until it's almost there. Oh, that's why it's a daily basis to put this info out. Just because a spaghetti plot says that it's going to hook north does not mean it's going to hook north. It's all about the surrounding pressure. It's a jet stream. It's highs and lows. As far as the storms that just passed Kansas City and Central America, it's the Bermuda Atlantic pressure bubble in the ocean that is still pushing this thing west. Still. Oh boy, who's that? Scootin' Putin, thank you so much. Totally unnecessary, but thank you so much. Means a lot. Yeah, no one's talking about Georgia yet because they don't even know what's going to happen. That's what I'm saying. It's like the Weather Channel is only telling you what is going on currently. They're not telling you where it's going to go. They give you some cone of uncertainty, and they hope it goes into that cone of uncertainty so they can feel like they're right. But what I'm looking at right now is a Category 5 storm dipping south instead of hooking north like it's supposed to be, as they say. That is true, but as far as the water's getting cooler, but when we're in the Bahamas, you can swim in the water in the Bahamas and it still feels like it's 85 degrees. This is a different type of water right here. And then as you get south, it's even more warm. That's why a big part of our prepping for the hurricane season was talking about the Gulf waters, how they are above average this year. And we actually have a invest in the Gulf as we speak. In fact, let's look at that real quick. We have a bunch of invests going on right now. Let me just go to Tropical Tidbits. Where are me? I feel like I'm going blind right now. I'll just type it in. And I can't spell today. Alright, so this is, as of right now, Tropical Tidbits is saying this. So, major hurricane, the M stands for major, 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 even major as it approaches the north end of Florida, as it approaches Georgia, and then hurricane as it gets to South Carolina, and then you see this cone of uncertainty. They don't know where this thing's going to go. That I mean that is clear as day. They have no clue where this hurricane is going to go. And when you're watching it live on radars and it's still dipping south, the only thing it could do is recorrect itself and make a massive hook to the north. And that would take a lot of different pressures from the Gulf, from the US, and from the Atlantic Ocean itself. And I don't know. I'm telling you, I will be the first here to tell you that I'm wrong. I just don't see that happening. That's why you see red right here. That is hurricane warning, which means that this area right here will be affected by this hurricane. And it's a category 5. It's not a 3. It's not a 2. It's not a 4. It's a 5. This thing is one of the biggest hurricanes ever. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. And you can see red, yellow, tropical storm winds as far in as 100 miles into Florida. And then after that, they have no idea. The cone of uncertainty is covering, if you want to do a parallel version, it's about 500 miles, which goes to tell me that they are not, they don't know. They just simply don't know. It's all about timing. It's all about when the jet stream is going to hit. It's all about when the Gulf moisture is going to make its way to the east. If it does, it could go south or north rather, and then keep this thing going west. And then the Bermuda Atlantic pressure. If that thing extends out anymore, this thing is going straight west into Florida. And again, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just showing you the facts. These are the charts that we are given. And then you have the Weather Channel, which is saying that this thing, it's just going to hook up north, minor damage to Florida, and then hopefully this thing will just shoot out to the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, look how close we are to landfall right now. The outer bands have already passed the last islands of the Bahamas, and that's a 60-mile gap. From here to here is 60 miles. You can drive that in 1 hour. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, guys. I want this thing to hook north. I want it to shoot north as soon as possible so Florida's out of danger's way, and I want it to hook out this way. I don't want to see it hit the Carolinas. I don't want to see it hit Georgia. I don't want to see this thing hit anywhere. All I know is that is one of the most perfect eye walls I've ever seen in my life, with one of the strongest hurricanes we have all ever seen in our lives. Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to buy into the Northern Hook. It's very hard to. And if it happens, you know what? I'll be right here to tell you that I was wrong. But I just don't see how it's going to happen. I mean, if you, watch here, I'll show you something interesting here. I'm going to put my mouse right there. You see the tip of my mouse? Where's the ring after it crosses my mouse? South. No, this radar is not showing any sort of northern movement whatsoever. Yeah, it was supposed to turn north yesterday. Do you remember when a hurricane was due to hit Tallahassee area out of nowhere and it took a hard right turn? Yeah, I do remember that, and also remember Sandy, guys. Hurricane Sandy. That thing came right up the East Coast and then, boom, turned right into New Jersey like someone just drop kicked it right into New Jersey. So these things have a mind of their own, but at the same time, they are influenced by outside pressures. That's the main thing we need to understand. And still, just look at what Florida has in its future. This is the National Hurricane Center putting this out. They have the Bahamas totally covered in red because they are getting decimated as we speak. Then we have this pinkish color, hurricane warning. Purple is hurricane watch for Melbourne, Fort Pierce, West Palm Beach, Highland Beach, tropical storm watch as far inland as Dundee. I mean, how can you say this thing is going to turn north and then hook out this way, but yet we still have tropical storm watches for Dundee and Sebring, which is basically on the west side of Florida, just bordering Tampa. I mean, you can even extend this into Tampa at this point with a Category 5 hurricane. Yes, a Category 5 storm is just. I mean, the only thing I could say is if you have a metal box that is 4 feet thick, that's the only way that you are surviving a Category 5 storm. And I hate to say that. I hate to say stuff like that, but these things are no joke. This is a big deal. This storm will be remembered forever, whether it makes landfall or not, just like Labor Day. Labor Day, I don't believe was a landfall, was it? Let me check. Let me double check here. All right. Labor Day storm restricted here, blah, blah, blah. 1935 Labor Day hurricane, formerly known as Hurricane 3, was the most intense Atlantic hurricane to make landfall. So, yes, Labor Day came up the west coast of Florida and then hit up into the Gulf by Tampa. So, as a Category 5. And it was named Labor Day because of how close it was to Labor Day. And guess what, guys? Tomorrow is Labor Day. The hurricane intensified rapidly, passing near Long Key, and in the evening of Monday, September 2nd, that is tomorrow, the region was swept by a massive storm surge as the eye passed over the area. The waters quickly receded after carving new channels connecting the bay with the ocean. So this thing has the potential to actually create new geography in the state of Florida if it does intend to stay west. Yes, it did. Not in 1935 killed the Keys. Yes, it did. There was a lot more of the Keys there before Labor Day hit. Sorry about my voice, guys. I've been talking for days and days and days. John M. No, not self-proclaimed. My brother's a meteorologist for the Navy, so. Gray Fashir, yes, they're comparing this to Andrew, actually. This is the strongest storm since Andrew that could possibly hit Florida, and this is actually stronger than Andrew as of right now. True Helper, how are you, my friend? Can I get some confirmation about some rotation off the west coast of Africa? West coast of Africa. Yeah, we do. We have another storm that is making its way. And that is why I brought up tropical tidbits. Now we're going to remember. Thank you, guys. Here we go. I'll show you. Let's see. Here we go. Check this out. So, we have Dorian right here. This one's saying 185 miles an hour, but it's 224. We have a 40% chance of cyclone formation in the Gulf within the next 5 days. We have a 80% chance of cyclone formation over the next 5 days coming right off Africa. This one looks like it's heading in a northern direction into the middle of the ocean. May not be a factor for the U.S., but you never know. This is the same thing that Irma showed back in the day when I made that video about Irma hitting New York on 9/11. That's because that's what the info showed. It literally showed the hurricane shooting across the ocean and boom, hitting New York City on 9/11. And then we have disturbance number 3, 30% chance of cyclone formation over the next 5 days. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 hurricane and 3 invests going on at the same time in the Atlantic Ocean. It's reminding me of 2017 with Katia, Maria, Irma, and someone fill in that 4th one for me. Let me refresh it and see. Yeah, it's red. I just refreshed the page. It's red. 80% chance of cyclone in 5 days. Who just sent that? Annie, thank you so much. Wow. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. South Carolina is bad. What do you mean? As of right now, or in the near future if this thing hooks north? Yes, Lee. There you go. It was Katia, Lee. Oh, no, Jose. Yes, Jose. It was Irma, Katia, Jose, and Maria all at the same time. Sizzler. I don't think there's a sizzler near me. Fort Lauderdale. It's very possible. You know, I hate giving a yes or no, but guys, you got to look at the spaghetti plot here. I mean, yes, a lot of them have this thing hooking a very northern direction, but you also have to take into account these other ones too. I mean, this is what I'm seeing right now. This lime green one, going barreling right into Florida, and then pulling a U-turn and coming back out, and even this purple one right here. This is more likely what we're going to see than a northern hook missing Florida and then coming up towards the outer banks of the Carolinas. It's just, I can't see how this thing is going to hook north in this short period of time. I mean, we're talking about a Category 5 storm. If this was a 2, a 3, maybe the influence would be a little more. It would shoot it north. Excuse me. But this is a 5. This thing has momentum behind it. It takes a lot more influence of outside pressures when it comes to a Category 5 to move it. I mean, yes, hurricanes do not move on their own. They are influenced by outside pressures, but when you hit Category 5 and these type of wind speeds, it's very hard for something less strong to influence it. That's why I'm scared that this thing may do a number on Florida more than they say it's going to do. And again, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm telling you just my opinion. I mean, you could take my opinion for what it's worth, or you can listen to the Weather Channel. It's up to you. But when you see 946 millibars and then that, I mean, come on. This thing will affect Florida. Look at these purple rings inside Florida itself, even if it does make that northern hook. it's basically showing that it's going to pass the Bahamas, stall out, and then move up the east coast of Florida. I mean, if this thing stalls out in between the last island of the Bahamas and Florida, it's only going to get stronger. And that's why we're seeing 224 mile an hour winds. It's unbelievable. These are numbers we have not seen in 100 years, maybe even longer. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Cyprus, thank you so much. Guys, you do not have to do this. Thank you so much. This is what it's supposed to do. Stall out. Yeah, exactly. Yes, weather. Let me scroll down and read that again. Bedweather freak. That is what happens. It's supposed to do. Stall out starting tomorrow. Yes. And what that tells me is that it's just going to get stronger. It's going to stall out, get stronger. Maybe that is what is going to influence the northern movement. It's going to stall out, allow the other pressures to move over it or under it, and force it north. But if it stalls out, that means half is going to be on Florida, half will be in the Bahamas. That's how big the storm is. Let's get back to some visuals here. Oh, yeah. Still moving south. Look at it. It's dipping down. I mean, if this thing wants to come this way and then shoot up, think about this right here. Lake Okeechobee will be covered by this hurricane whether it shoots north or not. And you got to remember, with a storm this size, the wind field, the damaging wind field sticks out about 75 to 100 miles. I know a Cat 6 has never happened, but damn. You know what, that's funny you said that because they were talking on the Weather Channel about how eventually they're going to have to up the scale because when we're talking 10 to 50 miles an hour in between different categories, and then you get a Category 5, which could be 224 or 155, they have to make a Category 6. They have to. Yes, Murphy's Law. If this thing stalls out right in between that last Bahama Island and Florida, it will get stronger. That's what these things do. Yeah, where is moving west at 5 miles an hour? Yeah, exactly. Moving west, not northwest, not southwest, but west. And again, we do have another day, a day or so before it gets to the end of this island. So, again, like I said, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll be on here and I will tell you I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter. This thing will affect Florida in very major ways. We've not seen a hurricane like this in a long time. In fact, 2 years. It's been 2 years. Besides Hurricane Michael, which was kind of like a smoke and mirrors type thing where they didn't want you to think it was a Category 5, but, 2 months before hurricane season of 2018, oh yeah, by the way, Hurricane Michael was a Category 5. Sorry about that. We messed up. It's just funny sometimes. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look at some of the, as far as wind in Florida, look at some of these rings coming into Florida. We're talking just a couple hours before the, Palm Beach, Daytona Beach, West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie. Yeah, you're going to start getting waves and you're going to start getting wind. Not so much hurricane force type, but that's for another couple days. We very well may see that. And I'm not letting that go until I see this thing turn north. And it is not happening yet. Yeah, of course not. They don't want to scare people. They want people to stay in place until it's absolutely last minute, traffic jams, no gas, no food. You know what I mean? And that was the cherry that, or whatever they call it, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when they had um, Hurricane Irma convinced that it was going to be East Coast, Weather Channel, Weather Underground, every single mainstream media channel saying this thing is going to be an East Coast Florida storm. Please, everybody move from the east to the west. And then guess what? Dipped right underneath the Keys, came right up the west coast, and basically destroyed Naples. They're still rebuilding as we speak. So, you know what? I don't trust the TV anymore. I trust what I see with my own eyes. Patriot 911, I agree. Yeah, many places are saying it will hit as a 4, but as of right now, there's nothing stopping it from lowering from a 5. I can't, I just don't see it. I see this thing getting stronger. And even in this chart you're watching right now, see how you see a lighter color black, and then it gets darker? This storm is getting stronger. It's not getting weaker. Who flooded New Orleans? Katrina did. Cyprus, thank you again, my friend. Will brick houses survive? I don't know. You're going to have to ask the wolves. Um, uh, Aside from the jokes, brick houses, it's hard to say. It's more roofs that take the damage from storms, and usually you see foundations and walls left over. But again, I don't want you guys thinking that just because of my opinion and my, me looking at this, that you guys have to start boarding up your homes and leaving. In another day, if this thing does not start moving north, yes, I'm going to start telling people to leave this area. Absolutely. My grandma lives here. I have family in this part of Florida. Truly, yes. Thank you so much. Let me answer your question. What do you expect the storm to be like when it reaches Wilmington, North Carolina? Your coverage of Florida is very helpful. Thank you very much for that. And if it does make this northern turn, it's going to be the Outer Banks, in my opinion, that's going to take it the worst. But when you go to Tropical Tidbits and you watch it go up, look at that. I mean, the entire Outer Banks are covered, and you got a full-blown hurricane about 200 miles inland in North Carolina, and even including Virginia. And then as we move up, we see Chesapeake Bay getting hit with some of it. And then as we move forward, this could churn up areas of New Jersey and Long Island and New York. I mean, this is not something to mess around with, guys. This is a very significant storm. A very significant, very rare, something we haven't seen in a long time. I know Irma and Maria were all Cat 5s, but they were Cat 5s in different areas, and we lucked out with a lot of them. Harvey, no, we did not luck out with. Katrina, we did not luck out with, but a lot of other Cat 5s we did. This one, I don't know. I can't figure out how they think this thing's going to just shoot north. And I say that because there's just, the only thing I can think of is the high pressure in the Bermuda Atlantic. As you can see here with this line right here, this line was once covering over Florida and the southeast states. and it looks like it pulls out right there. Like right here would be the high pressure, which would allow this storm to come north. So basically, it's going to depend on whether the Bermuda Atlantic pressure, which is a big pressure bubble in the Atlantic Ocean, if that can pull back to the west, or the east rather, towards Africa, that would allow this storm to shoot north. And that would be the only way that this could happen. But if that pressure stays there, it's going to pin it right against Florida and keep it riding right up the coast. It's going to be too little too late, in my opinion. But again, I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll be right here to tell you. God, that thing's a monster. That is a monster hurricane. West Palm Beach, Highland Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Florida City even getting tropical storm winds, and this thing's 200 miles north of that area. It makes a little bit of a northern hook there, and then it starts dipping south. Watch. South, south, north, south. You see those little changes there? Did I turn off display capture? Yep, I did. Sorry, guys. Well, the thing is it's not going north yet. It's getting stronger as it's moving west. It's not moving north yet. It's moving west at 5 miles an hour. There's no north to be had at this moment. I'm hoping that the atmospheric conditions here in the Gulf aid in pushing it and kind of like creating a force field, and then that Bermuda Atlantic pressure lets loose, and then it'll move up. But right now, this thing is in a western direction, very slow at 5 miles an hour, Category 5, 200 plus mile an hour winds around the eye of this hurricane. And that is why I've had friends send me videos and pictures from the Bahamas that are just completely devastated. They don't exist anymore. Rosa Blackwell, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will relay that to Caroline. I believe she's in here, so I'm trying to catch up with some of your messages, guys. I'm sorry. I'm in Pensacola, safe and sound, as long as it doesn't end up in the Gulf. Very true, yes. Unless this thing were to plow through Florida and then get into the Gulf side, you might not have much to worry about. But then again, we've seen these storms do the exact opposite of what mainstream media has said they're going to do. And that's why I do not watch it anymore. I watch my own charts. I just don't trust them. I can't. Yeah, that eye wall is just... I'm telling you, it looks fake. It looks like it's like out of a movie. It's like The Perfect Storm, you know? That eye wall is easily 70 miles across. It's just unreal. It's possible, C players. Yes, it is very possible. But again, we're not going to know for about another day. If this thing starts hooking north, then that's going to change my forecast. I'm going to start talking about the northern parts of Florida. But right now, it's just, it's just not showing any sort of northern movement at all whatsoever. And I hate to say that they're gonna, put those spaghetti plots out there that show it moving north, um, to keep people, at ease. But at the same time, anyone on the east coast of Florida, just be prepared for this, please. I hate asking people to spend money or use resources or, displace themselves. Like, I hate it. I hate doing that. I hate being responsible for someone changing their daily routine. But at the same time, this is no joke. This is a big boy. Chris. Oh my god, man. You're hilarious. Jake, yes, I have actually, and it was called Irma. They, I think I said this like 5 times already, but it's okay. I'll say it again. And who's this? Let's see. Grill Master. Oh man, you know what? I'm using that money to grill. I'm telling you that right now. Um, we were just talking about Irma, and yes, every single forecast on this planet had Irma going up the east coast of Florida. And guess what? It went underneath the Keys, came right up the west, and hit Naples. So I do not trust anything I see on TV. Not a word of it. Not one single word. Miami, I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna dip south into Miami. Miami, you will definitely get rain and wind from it, but it's not gonna be that eye wall destruction type deal. And again, I'm not saying this thing is going to barrel into Florida. I'm saying that I am not seeing this northern turn yet. And it's just funny how like these hurricanes get so close to land and all of a sudden, poof, they just, veer off. It's almost like I don't even want to say it because it'll probably ruin the entire video, but it's almost like it's under some sort of control. It's like here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Oh, sorry, never mind. It's not coming. Exactly. Exactly, Kami. Yes. You need to learn how to read these charts. It's not hard to do. It's really not. I literally sit here. I will sit here for hours and I will watch this like we're doing right now. I will watch this chart for 2 straight hours and you see things moving. Like even these white clouds, like see this stuff right here? Everything is moving west, and if not west, it's moving south. And then you got a hurricane that's expected to move just jet north. I mean, come on. How is that going to happen? In fact, let me change the regional section here so we can get a bigger view of what we're seeing here. So you see this strip of moisture coming across the Gulf here, Panhandle, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, which is getting some rain right now. Parts of southern North Carolina getting rain. Now, this is all on top of the hurricane. So this is a force field in itself. So until this is gone, this thing is not going north. It's not. The only thing that's going to make this go north is if the Bermuda Atlantic pressure in the ocean pulls back and allows this thing to shoot up. All hurricanes, all cyclones, all typhoons, they want to move in the direction of what part of the earth they're in. If you're in the southern hemisphere, typhoons and cyclones want to shoot to the north unless they're influenced by pressure. If you're in the northern hemisphere like we are, these things want to always move north unless there's a pressure keeping it flat. And that's what we have right now. We have a pressure in the Atlantic Ocean. We have a pressure coming down from the United States, which is flatlining this thing to keep west. If we had none of those things, this thing would have shot up north yesterday. It's just the way it works. Very much so. Very too close for comfort. You know what? In my opinion, meteorologists, especially the ones that are on TV, it's all about ratings. It's all about keeping people on their toes, keeping their channel on, and you know, if they're wrong, they just move on like it never happened. There's a guy, a local news anchor from my area, who literally will say it's going to rain tomorrow, and if it doesn't, he wears a paper bag on his head the next day because he feels so bad. Places like the Weather Channel, Weather Underground, stuff like that, if they're wrong, they just move on like nothing ever happened. They just forget about it. They don't answer emails, they don't answer anything. Andy Kennedy, shout out from Pennsylvania. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, no, Florida will get tropical storm rains and winds, and um, there will be waves. There's going to be everything, no matter what, whether this thing hooks north or not. Look how big this storm is compared to Florida. It's wider than Florida. The storm is bigger than the state of Florida. Will it hit Jacksonville? If that northern hook comes, Jacksonville will be part of it, but it's not. I don't see if it does hook north. I don't see it hooking back into northern Florida. If it hooks north, that means it's gonna kind of be a trajectory like this. It's gonna come out this way, and then, like they said, the Outer Banks. Jacksonville may get some wind, some rain from it, but it's certainly not going to be like a damaging type situation. But then again, I could be wrong. The first model showed this thing hitting right into Florida and then straight up the middle of Florida as a Category 1 for 2 days. And that's very rare to see a hurricane hit land, stay on land, and continue to be a Category 1 storm for over 24 hours. Oh, yeah. No, this thing is slowing down. That's what I'm saying. It's slowing down, and that would be the only chance for this thing to shoot north, is if it slows down, stays put, and then the other pressures around it adjust and allows it to move north. It's moving at 5 miles per hour right now west. So, I mean, you can walk 5 miles an hour. Yes. Who was that? Brittany J. Yes. If this thing does make the Northern Hook, Category 2 is a very strong possibility for the Carolinas because of how strong the storm is, how much momentum it has, the warm water. Yes, that's exactly what happens with these storms. Bravo, Ohio. Cardinals Nation, I wish I could tell you. Because right now, it's looking like it's going to make landfall right next to Lake Okeechobee. But I can't say that for sure, and I won't say that for sure because I don't know. I don't do the prediction thing, man. I don't. I'm not going to tell you that this hurricane's going to hit here or here or here. I show you daily updates. I show you the most updated information so you know where it might hit. And The reason I don't do that is because I'm not going to displace people and then have them come back and be like, why would you tell me to do that when it didn't happen? It's not in me. I can't do it. All I can do is tell you what my eyes are seeing, and I'm seeing this thing moving west, and I'm not seeing it moving north in any way, shape, or form. There is a state of emergency in Florida right now, and you can guarantee there will be evacuations along the areas of Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, stuff like that. Caroline and I have a really good friend that lives near Port St. Lucie. I do see evacuations coming very soon. If not, they will be today. Maybe not mandatory. Maybe they could be um, selective, like it's your choice. But even mandatory evacuations, you don't have to leave. They're not going to arrest you for not leaving. And a lot of people do that, and that's why we lose lives. One love, yes, I agree. It's just there's no northern movement yet. It's moving right towards south central Florida. And now that it's slowing down, the only thing I could think of is that if it does slow down enough, everything around it can adjust, and then maybe it'll move north. That's what all the pros are saying. And I don't want to go too much outside of what they think is going to happen because I am not a professional meteorologist. My brother is. He's been in the Navy for almost 30 years now. I talk to him often, and he tells me that a lot of these charts are just for show. They don't know. Just like I said with Irma, every single chart showed Irma doing exactly this, but Irma went like this. So charts don't matter. It's a matter of what you're seeing, it's a matter of what's happening, and then we have this. I mean, how much room can you possibly have to see this thing hook north without affecting Florida, even as deep as Lake Okeechobee? I just don't. I don't see it. I do not see it. Traffic on a normal day in Florida is ridiculous. It's like New York City. So that's why they keep saying, like, if you wait till Saturday or Sunday, it's already too late. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not an evacuation person. Like, I'll tell you to evacuate if this thing, this black part starts touching Florida. I'll be like, get out of there now. Just leave. Even if you have to go west, if you have to get on a boat and go into the Gulf, I mean, if you can't make it north, I would do that too. But that has not happened yet, so I'm not going to say that. All I'm showing you is what I'm seeing with my eyes, and this thing is dipping south. I don't care what anyone says. It's going west, and it's moving south. You can see right with this island here, it's going this way. And then we just got to wait. It's a waiting game at this point. Yeah, this thing went nuts. This thing went from a little blip by the Leeward Islands to all of a sudden a Category 5, one of the biggest we've ever seen, faster than Labor Day. It's just unbelievable. The weather is changing, guys. Our hurricane seasons are changing. They're going to have to extend the months of hurricane season because we don't see anything in April. We rarely see things in May. June in 2017 was the beginning of a big, long stretch of hurricanes. It's just things are changing. And it all has to do with the pole shift. It has to do, like, we have not been on this planet long enough to see the cycles that this planet goes through. Like, yes, we're used to spring, fall, winter, summer. Those are constants. Those are every 4 months. But we need to understand that we have been here a fraction of the time that the Earth's been here. So there are cycles that could be 100 years long. Like, there could be 100-year seasons that we have just never experienced before. Not yet, Waterboy. Not yet. Jerry Jr., very, very good point. Because I'm telling you right now, since 2016, 2015, I have seen this entire weather, every single weather rule has been broken in the last 3 years. And when you watch the Weather Channel, they just make up terms for it. Like bombogenesis and bomb cyclones and this and that. And it's just like, you know what? When I was 10, 12, 13, 14, there were no bomb cyclones. That didn't happen. Those did not exist. Yeah, it really is. The eye is perfect. That eye wall right there, if you're in that eye wall, you can look straight up and you will see the sun. It will be like a perfect day, and then all of a sudden that back wall comes and it's hell. Bomb Genesis was used in mirror cash in college. They dragged it and beat it to death like a polar vortex. Yeah, they were probably prepping for the fact that they were going to have to use that as a term, in my opinion. Yes, it was. Irma was a perfect hurricane, but the forecast for the hurricane was anything but perfect. And if you guys go back on my channel when it came to Irma, every single day I posted a video saying that this thing would not go up the East Coast. It was going to go under the Keys and up the West Coast. And no one believed me. Nobody. In fact, that's where I took the most flack for my channel was during Hurricane Irma. And then when that thing went up the West Coast, all of a sudden it was silence. Yeah, Fran was rough. Yeah, believe it or not, Hurricane Irma had a chart that brought that thing right up to New York City, uh, eye wall touching New York City on 9/11, and I actually made that video. It went viral. It did not happen, obviously, but that was the initial report of what Irma was going to do. And I got a lot of flack for that too. People were thinking I made the chart up, but it was this exact chart we're looking at right now that showed Irma shooting straight across the Atlantic Ocean right to New York City and hitting on 9/11. You can go back and watch the video, and the hurricane is there. Let's see. In fact, let's measure it. Let's find out how far away it is. So I want to say the eye wall is what, right about here? We're about 88 miles away from Florida. The hurricane alone is bigger than that. Do I know Tabitha? Are you asking me that, Tin Ojeda? Yeah, are you safe? That's what I mean. They're gonna have to start changing these what's the word I'm looking for? The mile per hour that determines what a category one, two, three, four, and five is. You know, they've upped scales before. I mean, for space weather, they went from 10 to 12. I would not be surprised if they add a category six because 155 to 224, that would be a category 3 to a category 5. You know what I mean? So why not add a 6 if it's there? If they exist, they exist. What would cause the hurricane to go north? Jacqueline, that would be outside pressures. So if you notice here, perfect chart to look at to show you that. You see this line right here? This is a high pressure. If I were to move out here, you would see a letter H right in the middle of the ocean. And the farther that this moves inland, that is going to keep this hurricane down low. Now, pressures keep hurricanes, or pressures direct hurricanes. If there was no high pressures or anything like that, hurricanes would form and just shoot north. That's what they want to do in the northern hemisphere. But if this high pressure pulls back, it's going to allow this hurricane to move north. Like you could almost see the gap where it might move north. But then again, we have a high pressure in the U.S. that's moving this way that could block that path. So this thing very well, they're basing their northern hook off the fact that the ocean is going to pull back high pressure, allowing this thing to come north when we have a high pressure moving west to east off the United States. That's going to keep this thing pinned down. So it's like, how are they not taking into consideration that this thing right here is going to move this way and keep this hurricane down? And that's why I'm saying it's going to hug the coast or it's going to go right into Florida. Yeah, I lived in Palm Beach for a couple years, and there was one time we had to evacuate. And yes, I'm not surprised they have mandatory evacuations as of right now. They have to. I mean, they have to. Look at this. They have to. Are you kidding me? How could you not have mandatory evacuations when you have something bigger than almost the state heading your way? Even if it does make the northern turn, it's going to just totally wreck the coasts of Florida. I'm not saying in a way where it's not going to be inhabitable, but I'm saying you're not going to be on the beaches. The lifeguard chairs are going to fall down. If there's a beach chair, it's going to be in the ocean. Beach houses, you're not going to have shutters anymore. I mean, it's common sense. It's all good. Let all the people in here they want. It's all good. We're talking facts here. We're not scaring people. We're not trying to make things that they're not. We're showing you exactly what is going on at this time. And right now, this thing is west, moving very slowly towards Florida, with an expectation of landfall on the second. Now, it was going to be late or the third. It was going to be Labor Day. It still could be if the thing picks up speed, but now they're showing more of a Tuesday landfall if it does not make that northern hook. But again, the northern hook doesn't matter at this point. This is a Category 5 storm. Meldick, that was a good idea. I would not be visiting Florida right now. In fact, like I said, my I've been talking to my grandma, and She's in Florida. She usually spends most of the summer in New York to visit our family, and then she goes back. She just recently moved. She lives on the 8th floor of a building. So, there's a lot going on in my life right now. Can you do some high pressure analysis that would keep it south? Yes, let's check out. We'll go to the regional here. And I'll show you the entire Atlantic Ocean right here. All right, so you see this high pressure right here? This is the Bermuda Atlantic pressure bubble. This thing forms every year. It's usually there all the time. And if you notice, anything that comes off the west coast of Africa stays underneath this high pressure. Low pressures rarely break into high pressures. That is why this hurricane is where it is. Now, what they're saying is that because this line right here, which is part of this high pressure, is pulling back, that means that this hurricane is going to start hooking north. But we also have another high pressure right here in the United States that moves west to east. So as this is pulling back, this high pressure is going to cross the ocean and keep this thing flattened out. That's the big deal. That's what we're talking about. So it's anyone's guess at this point. But if things were to stay the same, if this high pressure right here stays exactly where it is and this stays exactly where it is, yes, we could see this thing go north. But that's not what happens. These things are constantly moving, and I'll show you that. I'll hit play right here. Might take a minute. You might miss some frames, just like that. It's gotta load itself. In fact, let me hit pause and we'll go back. So I'll show you. So you see the H right here and the H right here. Every single frame, look, these two high pressures connect, which means now we're seeing one giant high pressure that goes down into the Gulf, which would allow this thing to only move north to here. Now, as we move forward, look at that. Where do you see this thing moving north? Besides right here, after it stalls out, you see a little bubble come up. This is September 2nd. And then all of a sudden it stops and then just shoots north. That's what they're hoping for. But again, that's exactly what they were saying would happen with Irma. They said the pressure was going to release, the pressure in the U.S. was going to release, and then all of a sudden Irma was going to go right up the East Coast. They moved the entire population to the west. And then guess what? The pressure did not release. The thing stayed west. Luckily, it was down in this area, clipped Cuba, brought it under a Category 5, and by the time it hit Naples, it was a 3, maybe a 2, but still decimated Naples. So you can just have an idea of what a Category 5 will do if this high pressure does not move. This thing will barrel into Florida, and it will be not good. You can almost see how it, look, as I'm moving forward, the storm stops in its tracks right there and then moves north. Storms don't do that. And if it does do that, look, this is what we're dealing with. We're going to be dealing with an entire day of a hurricane 70 miles off the coast of Florida, just bringing bands of rain and wind onto the northern parts or north central parts of Florida for at least 24 hours. If it's a Category 5, they usually predict about a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. That's on top of a foot of rain. So, and that could be higher. A strong Category 5 like this, 220 miles an hour, that could be 20 feet of water. Now imagine being on the beach and then 20 feet of water just rushing towards you. Even the seamounts aren't 20 feet high. And that's what happened with Katrina. That's what happened with Harvey. Same exact thing. You could build those things up as much as you want. Sand is porous. It will be penetrated. That's all there is to it. And 20 feet of water is 2 stories of a building. Imagine being on the second floor of a building and being flooded. I was talking about that before. Yes, the media does like ratings. They like to keep people on their toes. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to show you exactly what we're seeing right now. And yes, Tropical Tidbits is showing that northern hook, but not before that thing is in Florida. Any part of that purple that touches Florida is going to be a big deal. And then look, 959 passing Georgia and South Carolina. Even South Carolina has more purple in it than Florida does, but it won't be a Category 5 at this point. And you never know. Tomorrow, this thing could be like, whoop, goodbye. All for ratings. All for TV ratings. Excuse me. Exactly. Yes, like Matthew closer to shore. And again, I don't like telling people to go spend money and buy water, buy supplies, buy this, buy that, but it's a smart thing to do. Have a plan is basically the saying. Have a plan. Because I've fallen for that before. People are like, "Oh my God, it's going to be devastating," especially with Sandy. Because I live in the Northeast. Everyone's like, Sandy's going to destroy New Jersey. It's going to destroy eastern Pennsylvania. It's going to destroy Long Island. And I went out and I bought everything you could possibly think of. And I sat in my house and my power didn't even flicker. Yes, Sandy was horrible for the coasts. Yes, it was. Absolutely. That's the moon. I lived in Palm Beach for 3 years. I feel your pain, my friend. Oh yeah. Wow. Excuse me. Yes, Queens. Oh man, Queens took a hit from Sandy. Big hardcore. Definitely. True helper. Thank you again for being here, my friend. Why? School takes time. My brother's a meteorologist, so I get to cheat. Yes, Sandy did a number on New York City's water, New Jersey's water, Long Island. It was a bad situation for a long time after Sandy. And Sandy made that dramatic left hook that like no one's ever seen before. That thing just went. It was like, okay, see you later, boom, and then that's when everything started to matter. Apollo Sleet? No, I've had about 5 or 6 over the last 4 months. I want to say I could be wrong, but live streams are fairly new to this channel over the last 2 years. Yes, I've only done live streams this year. Usually they do a 5 p.m. update and a 11 p.m. update as far as the National Hurricane Center, but other local news stations they'll do 5, 8, sometimes 10, 11. You'll constantly you'll be updated about this storm, but it's not about what they're saying. It's about what you see on these charts. These charts are our go-to. This is what matters right here. This is what we're seeing. This is what's happening. You can't be like, okay, they're showing, the Weather Channel now. They stand on a floor, and they have this holographic, you know, these holographic cameras around them showing them what wind is going to do and this and that. And they just try to keep you stuck on the TV, like worrying and worrying and worrying, and like, oh my God, I need to go buy this, I need to go buy that. But this is one of those storms where that is a very strong possibility. I mean, Florida residents need to be prepared for this, whether it goes north or not. Yeah, no, I understand the situation with Florida. It's hard to leave Florida because there's only so many ways out. Traffic is a nightmare to begin with, especially along the coasts. And Florida is just one of those states that it's very thin, and hurricanes are wider than Florida. Um, Dark Rose Guild. I don't like predicting only because I hate getting people to worry more than they should. But what I'm seeing right now is until this eye wall gets to this part of the island, we are not going to see a northern movement. And if we do, it's going to be when it happens here. But you got to understand, measure from this part of the eye wall to here, and then measure that part of the eye wall from here to here. This hurricane is going to hit Florida. There's no doubt about it. Maybe not the eye wall, but it will certainly bring storm surge, wind, rain, lots of rain. It'll put debris up on the beaches, and then if it does turn north, then we have more beaches that the same thing is going to happen. You know, so like if I were to say right now on the spot, right now, this thing moving west at 5 miles an hour, if this thing does barrel into Florida as is right now, like this, it will be something that we will never forget for the rest of our lives. If it moves north, it's going to do a little less damage to inland areas. It's definitely going to be a coastal issue. And then if it turns up towards the outer banks of the Carolinas, that's going to be another issue. So it's just, that's what I'm saying. I hate making these predictions like this. That's why I like showing you guys what I'm seeing and how I'm thinking about it. I can't say if North Carolina is going to be fine yet. I don't know. I don't know if this turn is going to happen, and if it does happen, I don't know where uh, parts of North Carolina will get hit. I mean, obviously the Outer Banks stick out the farthest. I would assume the Outer Banks are going to be involved in it if it does hook north. But I don't see this thing coming up and then churning into the Carolinas like a hook. If anything, once it makes that northern hook, it's going to kind of want to ride out into the Atlantic Ocean, kind of like everything does because the Bermuda Atlantic pressure says so. So we have this big bubble out here, and that's why they're showing this here. So they're still saying it's going to be a hurricane by the time it gets to the Outer Banks, and this cone of uncertainty means that this hurricane could go anywhere within this cone of uncertainty. And that's a new term also. So this thing, as you could see, if it follows this pattern, it's going to go up, 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 and then out to sea. So Chesapeake Bay might be the last place that this storm touches, but then again, it could affect New York, New Jersey, Long Island. We don't know, and that's what the Weather Channel does. They keep you on your toes, and they make you think that every single place on, not on Earth, but in the U.S. is at risk for this hurricane. You're very welcome, Stephanie. You're very, very welcome. Well, I explained that before as far as the high pressure allowing it to move north. Now we have a high pressure in the ocean, and we have a high pressure that's moving west to east over the U.S. So if the high pressure in the ocean pulls back to the west, yes, that would allow the storm to move north. But at the same time, we have a high pressure in the United States that's moving west to east that could replace that pressure and keep this thing moving west. That's why everyone's relying on the Bermuda Atlantic pressure in the ocean to pull back and allow this thing to move north. But what people don't realize is that there's a high pressure, a very big high pressure in the United States that is moving west to east that could get into the ocean and keep this thing straight west. That's why I'm very confused about how they are so confident that this thing is going to shoot north. Now, again, I could be wrong. This very well may shoot north. It's very possible. But what I'm seeing right now is not that. I mean, Vent2Sky is a prediction website. So this site goes based off of what like Weather Channel shows and stuff like that. So you can see that yes, this thing does move in a northern direction, but I mean, just look at the difference between day 4 and day 6 from here to here. But also watch this. Here's Dorian right now. We're pushing 130. There's 138 I just saw. 138 miles per hour right now. You move to the third, even bigger. Okay? So you're going to tell me that this is not going to affect Port St. Lucie or Palm Beach. This thing is huge. It's a monster. And then by the fourth, we're all the way up by Jacksonville, 128 mile an hour winds. That includes Georgia. And then we got South Carolina by the fifth. But look at that. It's almost like between the fifth and between the fourth and the fifth, it skips. It just jumps. It's like it goes supersonic speed right up to North Carolina. And then look at that. The eye wall is in North Carolina. It's not going to be a Category 5. It'll be a 2, maybe a 1. We got 90 mile an hour winds there. But they're not letting that theory go that this thing is going to ride the coast all the way up and touch every state. But that is until this thing moves north. Why so big? Because the earth is changing, my friend. That is why. Hurricanes are getting bigger. They're getting more frequent. Yes, we did have a little bit of a break last year, but that could be the new cycle. It could be every 2 years we have a massive amount of earthquakes or hurricanes. I keep saying earthquakes because I was just looking at them. And then again, think about this. 80% chance, cyclone formation over 5 days, another hurricane is about to pop up right off the west coast of Africa. We have a disturbance in the middle of the ocean, 30% chance, to 40% chance of a cyclone in the Gulf. That could very well churn up into Texas. And we're sitting here talking about one of the biggest hurricanes we've ever seen. Look at that, 185 miles an hour. We are deadlocked with Labor Day hurricane as far as wind speed. And then when you do the calculations, it's actually 224 miles an hour. 910 millibars. We're approaching 800 millibars, which is some of the lowest pressures we've ever seen as far as hurricanes. Originally it was supposed to be a landfall on Labor Day. And because of this apparent northern hook they're talking about, it could be the second or the third, rather. It could be that Tuesday, the day after tomorrow. Who knows? That's why I'm all over this and just watching it constantly. Love One Way, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Unnecessary, but thank you so much. In fact, I'll send it right back to you. Do you scientifically prove that the Earth is flat? No, I do not. You want to put me in a rocket and put me in space? I'll let you know. Thank you, Shix Puppets. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. Poles are moving 6 degrees. Yes, they are. Tip was the biggest to ever not hit land. You got to remember that. Labor Day hit land. There's a difference between hurricanes that make landfall and difference between hurricanes that just exist and don't hit land. Thank you, Conscious Whisper. Thank you. Mama! My mom's in the house. Rosemary Egan. That's my mom right there. You know what? Miami might escape this. I mean, you're going to get some wind. You're going to get, I mean, look at it. Look at the size of the thing. I mean, Miami has weather going on right now. I mean, if these rings keep turning and turning and turning, boom, you're going to get some of those bands, but you're not going to get hit with the eye wall of the hurricane. I do not believe that. Yeah, she loves that stuff. Oh God, sleeping for me is hard enough. Miami will be affected if it continues west as far as outer bands. As far as a direct hit, no, I don't believe so. But Florida is one of those states where it's just very thin. It's it's just in that Goldilocks zone, if you want to say, just like Earth is in space. It's just there, and it's in the south. And the south, the more south you go, the warmer the water. Hurricanes thrive in warm water, and it's hard to say. Based on what I'm seeing right now, this thing is dipping down to the south, and I'm like, oh, Gary. Haha, Gary's watching. I love it. Oh, I chase storms. I do. I got my GoPro. I chase cops. They don't want anything to do with me. They close their window and drive away. They don't want to be on camera. 916 pressure. Let's check that out, actually. I want to see that. All right, let's see where you're at. Yeah, it's showing 915 millibars right now. That's very, very low. Yeah, this thing is man, this thing's a monster. And again, it's showing that northern hook right after it passes that last island of the Bahamas. And that is 60 miles, guys. Remember, the last island of the Bahamas to the coast of Florida is 60 miles. you can see that far. Like you can literally, if you're at the right spot, you can see 60 miles away. I believe it was at 912 at one point, but I could be wrong. There you go, Rock Hard Preston, 910. Oh yeah, parts of the Bahamas don't exist anymore. I was watching videos from a friend of mine that sent video to me, and it's flat. It's like walking on a beach. It's horrible. It's weakening because it's interacting with the Bahamas, but that 60-mile gap after that last part of the Bahamas, it drops down to 948. It showed, at least on Tropical Tidbits. On other charts, that would be like a 912. That's where it's going to swell back up, and then we're going to figure out what's going to happen once it either makes landfall in central Florida or if it's going to ride up the coast and then put everybody on the in the next 5 states on alert and on their toes for the next 5 days. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. No, you cannot evacuate the Bahamas unless you got private jets, you got money, you got this and that. Families. I mean, even in Florida alone, I mean, it's hard to get out of Florida. I mean, what is there? 4 highways that lead out of Florida? How does nightfall affect a hurricane? Um, in my opinion, it just hits you by surprise. I don't really think daylight affects a hurricane, except for the difference in water temperature. But when you're talking about a Category 5, this thing's already got the momentum, it's got the strength, it's got the power behind it, and it's not going anywhere. It's there, and it came out of nowhere. Yep. Still moving west, not northwest. The 8 o'clock advisory just said. Still moving west. Thank you, CW. CDW. I'm so sorry. Nice cap, by the way. Yeah, they're comparing this to Andrew all the way. If this thing does hit Florida and stays west, it will enter the Gulf. I believe yes, but I just think that it's gonna make a Florida landfall and then make that northern hook, like they showed in previous models. I don't. I mean, it's just like, are they playing games with us? Like they're gonna bring this Category 5 to Florida, 60 miles away, where you could basically see, and then just boop, goodbye, never mind. Sorry to bother you. It makes no sense to me. Uh, what are the chances of it affecting the Northeast like Sandy? I don't see it being a Sandy only because if you look at this chart here, the main concern would be coming up to the Outer Banks of the Carolinas, Chesapeake Bay, possibly with the cone of uncertainty. But then after that, I feel like it's just going to be one of those things that rides out uh, into the ocean. But then again, tomorrow this cone of uncertainty might cover Long Island, it might cover parts of Connecticut. I spent a lot of time in Montauk. We got hit by Hurricane Irene in 2011 when I was in Montauk, and that was no fun. And that wasn't a huge hurricane by any means. And I was holding on to a sign next to the ocean watching that thing, and it was like watching a movie. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Haven S. Hurricanes naturally move to the north unless influenced by outside pressures like the Bermuda Atlantic pressure. That's a high pressure, and then there's a high pressure in the U.S. right now that's currently moving west to east, which is why I don't understand how this thing's going to hook north in the time that it does. I feel like it's going to get a lot closer to Florida before it starts making that northern hook. Yevon King, it's possible. I don't want to say yes, but it's definitely a possibility. Um, because of the cone of uncertainty. Like it depends on how close it stays to the coast after making this turn. So as of right now, you can see this cone of uncertainty brings it into the states, and then the cone of uncertainty actually brings it hundreds of miles out into the ocean. And then you got New Jersey here, and then you got Long Island, and then New York up here. So we could be talking one day, and this cone of uncertainty is up and around that area. So yes, it's a possibility, but you got to understand as these things move up into the northeast, the water is a lot colder, not sustainable for hurricanes unless they have the momentum already. That's why Hurricane Irma was originally forecast to shoot straight through the Atlantic Ocean right up to New York because of how much momentum it had. But because of a high pressure bubble in the Atlantic Ocean that formed out of nowhere, that thing stayed down, 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 and then they said it was going to go up the East Coast, and then it went right under Florida, right up the West Coast. That's interesting. See this right here? This is a system that's coming from the Gulf over top of Florida through Georgia, and then coming over top of this hurricane. And you can actually see the top of this forcing this thing to stay down. Now, this has to disappear for this thing to come north. And here's that high pressure right here in the United States that we're talking about. You can see it a little better as the sun goes down because this is a 2-day chart. That's that high pressure right there that's going to come across and possibly pin this thing down, keeping it closer to Florida. And that's the scary part. That's what we have to worry about. Let me get the chat back up here. Uh, possibly, David. I tend to not look at those numbers, but someone mentioned there was like 1,500 at one point. But you got to understand when we have hurricanes this close to the U.S., everyone jumps online. They want to know about it. So if this was about a winter storm, I guarantee there'd be 60 people in here. So you know, you know how it goes, my man. That all depends. The Gulf, what are the chances it goes in the Gulf? It depends. If this thing stays west and hits Florida, like I said, I saw models that brought it right up the center of Florida. Something wants to bring this thing north, and it's going to be a pressure release from the ocean or from the United States. So the chances of it getting into the Gulf, I mean, we could take a look at the spaghetti plots again, and you could see the difference. So look at this. So as of right now, let me refresh just to make sure. Yeah, see this green plot right here? So we got the hurricane right here. This green plot has this thing barreling into Florida, doing a U-turn right before the Gulf, and then coming back out and shooting off into the ocean. Then we have this purple spaghetti plot that hits right above Port St. Lucie, stays in Florida, hooks around Georgia, and then exits just south of South Carolina. But then we have about 78% of the spaghetti plot saying that this thing is going to turn before making landfall. But because it's a category 5, it does not need to make landfall to cause issues. Like, these are just lines, these are spaghetti plots. We're talking about a hurricane. If I could find it, this big. I mean, compare those spaghetti plots to the size of a hurricane. It doesn't matter where those lines are. This thing is going to do a number on Florida. Yeah, we talked about the one coming off Africa. In fact, I have it right here. Thought I did. I have so many tabs up. Yeah, this one right here. 80% chance cyclone coming off Africa as we speak. 80%. So chances are this will be a named storm, but because of the direction it's heading into cooler waters. This is exactly what Irma did. Irma pointed right to New York. See New York right here? Boom. That's exactly what Irma started out as. So, again, if a pressure builds up in the ocean, this thing is going to flatten out and it's going to follow the same path that Dorian did. And this thing right here, I don't know about that. This thing's going to curl up into the ocean and probably dissipate in the cooler water. This one is in warm water. This might be a Mexico storm. It may churn up into Texas, but again, Dorian is all we need to be worrying about right now. Yes, September is going to be absolutely ridiculous. September is going to make up for June, July, August, and probably November. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if November and December we are still seeing hurricanes. I'm telling you, the world's changing. The cycles are changing. Everything's changing. I wouldn't get too worried about living in Tampa just yet. If this thing stays west and goes up the central part of Florida, that's when you would want to, be a little bit concerned. But again, we're still a couple days away from knowing if this thing's going to make that northern turn. If it makes the northern turn, Tampa, you're going to be good. You might get some rain bands. But if this thing does hit Florida and then go up, that's a different story. So it's really just it's a time thing. You got to just wait it out at this point. Yes, the seasons are changing. Everything's changing. It's more like a winter, summer. That's it. There's no spring. It's hard to say about Jacksonville. Depends on that northern turn once again, like I said. It's I mean, we got Jacksonville up here. If this thing makes that northern turn, it's going to ride right up the coast of Florida. And again, I wish I had those answers for you guys. I really, really do. But I'm calling it like I see it right now. And you can see this thing is dipping below a, a Bahama Island. It's not moving north, it's moving west. They claim when it gets to right here, it's going to shoot north. But by the time that eye wall is right there, the eye wall itself almost covers the distance between Florida and the end of the Bahamas. So just think about that for a second. You're going to have Category 5 winds to the east of Lake Okeechobee, even if it does curve up. Like this isn't going to miss Florida. It's not like that. It's a matter of whether it's going to be a direct hit on Florida and shoot through Florida, or if it's going to be half on Florida, half off, which in some cases is worse because then you just have recycled water being pulled out from one end and then pushed into another end, and that could happen all the way up the coast. Current wind speeds near the eye. It's ranging from 185 to 224. And I know that's a wide range, but all these different sites are showing different numbers. And again, I'm not in one of those airplanes where I can do it myself, but all I know is that the strongest landfalling earthquake or hurricane. How many times am I going to say earthquake? The strongest landfall hurricane was Labor Day, and that was at 185 miles an hour. And this storm is certainly at 185 miles an hour as of right now. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. It reloaded, that's why. Saw this. I knew you'd be here. It's all good. Yes, I do. I believe once it passes this part of the island and it's in this little spot right here, it's going to get stronger because when you look at any chart, it goes from like 950 millibars or whatever it is. Like tropical tidbits is off by about 20 millibars. The big sites have it at like 910, 912, 913. But once it gets into here, if this thing drops below 8, it's a whole nother world. It's gonna change everything because this is very warm water. There's no land interaction. When that eye wall gets right here, that it's gonna change everything. It's either gonna go north or we're gonna have a hurricane going right over Lake Okeechobee and possibly into the Gulf. If not, then right up the center of Florida. Yeah, an EF4 tornado that's about 100 miles wide. No, it's not weakening. There's no weakening in this storm. If there is weakening, it's just because of a little bit of the land interaction with the Bahamas, but there's so much warm water here that this land is so small it's not even affecting a storm of this size. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially if we're talking about 224 miles an hour dole. 207 would be an EF5 tornado. Imagine that. Imagine a a 70 mile wide EF4 or EF5 tornado. That's what a Category 5 hurricane is. It's just like, oh man. All right, I'm gonna hit play here. I'm gonna keep this running, guys. I'm just running downstairs to grab a drink, but I'm gonna keep this chart flowing right now. Hold on, let me find one that's actually not skipping freaking frames. How do you guys like this one? You guys like this chart? Let's get to the regional part of it. That's a good one. Though crash checking, that's a good thing because I want to see what the next set of data is because look at that. It just the black is getting more and more, and when you see the black, that means strong. And if it's weakening, it's because it's crossing that island of the Bahamas right now, and then it might ride that flatter island, that east to west flat island that goes towards Florida, and then we got that 60 miles in between the end of that island to Florida. That could possibly weaken it a little bit, but once it gets into this area right here, that's going to make up for all of this. If that's what stays true. If this thing starts hooking north by the time it gets here, it's going to be a whole nother story we're talking about. So it could take an Irene track. I was in Irene. I was in Montauk for Irene. And it just skimmed us, and I'm telling you right now, that was not fun. That wasn't even that big of a storm either. I was holding on to a please stay off the beach sign, watching 30-foot waves crash into a cliff. I was a little younger, so it seemed fun at the time. But when you're there and you're seeing it with your own eyes, you're just like, I'm never doing this again. Yeah, exactly. This thing is tracking south. It's not tracking north, it's tracking south and west. And if it does do that little south and then a U turn up, then so be it. That's what's going to happen. But as of right now, that is not happening. That would booking north, Papa Watson, would be the pressures. See, hurricanes do not move on their own. They are influenced by outside pressures. You could see here there is a pressure buildup right here that's moving across the U.S. You could see this coming over top of it. And then there's a big bubble in the Atlantic Ocean called the Bermuda Atlantic Bubble. It's a high pressure bubble. Now, low pressures very rarely puncture through high pressures. So the high pressure in the ocean right now is keeping this thing pinned west. If that high pressure was not there, all hurricanes in the northern hemisphere would want to shoot straight north right to the North Pole. That's how it works. If you're in the southern hemisphere, they want to shoot right down to the South Pole. So whatever it is that's keeping this thing west, it's high pressures. It's a pressure in the United States and it's a pressure in the ocean. That's why this thing's moving west instead of north. And now they're waiting for that pressure to release and pull back, so it has this little gap here to move up before it hits Florida, but too close to call. We just got to wait and see at this point. We're so close. This thing's in the Bahamas already. We're about 90 miles away from the coast of Florida. By the time it reaches the end of the Bahamas, we're 60 miles away, which you can almost see from this part of Florida. And if that's where it's going to turn north, then you can assure that West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, Delray, you name it. All those areas are going to get affected by this storm. It's a category 5. This is not a 3, it's not a 2, it's not a 4, it's a 5. David, yeah, I'll look for some webcams on there in a second. In fact, I'm going to leave this chart up for a second. I'm going to run down and grab a drink and something to eat real quick, but I'm going to bring food up so I could talk to you guys while I'm eating. So just sit tight. I'll keep this on right now, and you guys can talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Thank you all so much. My poor back. All right, let's get back to the live, wherever it may be. There we go. Yeah, I just spilled the drink all over my shirt. All right. Maybe poo nuggets. You never know. Monday. It looks like it's going to stall out a little bit. I'm not sure about Monday. It's looking more like a Tuesday. If it doesn't make that northern hook. Again, I know it's a lot of repeat info, guys, I've been saying, but this is what we have to go off of right now. I mean, you got charts that bring this thing right into Central Florida. You got charts that have it hugging the coast of Florida. And then you got charts that don't even touch Florida. But this is the Category 5 storm. Florida will be affected. No doubt about it. Let me refresh this page. See if they made any changes as far as where you're supposed to be watching. And nothing has changed. Hurricane warnings for Fort Pierce, West Palm Beach, Highland Beach. Hurricane watches up into Melbourne, inland. And then you got tropical storm watches through Central Florida. So, like I said, landfall or not, this is going to be a big deal for Florida. There's no doubt about it. Do you have any software that will show current actual wind speeds? I've used all different sites online. None of them show anything even close to what they're reporting radar scope. Yeah, radar scope is unfortunately more for U.S. weather. Now, the last I saw, this storm was at 195 knots, which would equal 224 miles per hour. But let's check that again. And then, by the way, I'm going to cut this live stream just so it doesn't take 7 hours to upload. And then we're going to do another one around 10 o'clock for the update. So, just letting you guys know. Man, that thing's a monster. That thing's a monster. Where do I gotta go to get here? Here we go. Tropical tidbits. Current storms. Alright, it's at 915 millibars, 190 knots. So let's see what we got there compared to what we had before. Still, same exact thing. 224 mile per hour winds. Category 5. Yeah, 915 is still 195 knots, over 200 miles an hour. Oh yeah, gusts are gusts. Gusts will push 15 feet of water onto the coast of any shore. Let's see what we got up here. Yep, still at 220. 220 miles an hour. 190 knots for wind gust. 915 millibars. And you see how they keep switching this. This was blue, and now it's red again. So now it's back into hurricane warning, which means they don't believe that this thing is going to make that north turn before they thought it would. Tropical storm warning was this entire line about 20 minutes ago. You can see tropical storm warning blue right there. And now this is all red. This is all hurricane warning now. Because they think this thing is going to just ride right up the Florida coast. Oh, yeah. I mean, anyone in the chat, you want to downplay it, go ahead. I mean, if you don't live in Florida, it's easy to downplay something like this. You live in Florida, you're not downplaying anything. This is a Category 5 hurricane. See, Ventus Sky, or Tropical Tidbits almost shows this thing wanting to clip Georgia and northeast Florida at the same time. And then you got spaghetti models like this that keep it off the shore, but then you look at the purple and the green, and then this freaking this bright green one wants to do a U-turn right in Florida and then fly back out. So it's like, I mean, who do you believe? That's what I'm saying. They don't know what's going to happen. They have an idea based on what's, what the pressures are. See how that was all blue and then it just changed? Here. It's not going to go back. This was all under tropical storm watch, and now it's under hurricane warning. The entire east coast of Florida. Yep, it's finally, the eye wall is finally reaching that last island of the Bahamas. You can see right there. So this island right here got completely decimated. I saw some pictures of this island, and it's like, it's unbelievable what this thing just did there. Just, no one's going to be planning trips to the Bahamas for some time, unfortunately. Well, besides the military airplanes that fly through the storms themselves, yes, the military is definitely watching it. They're gonna have National Guard all over the coast of Florida, especially while they're waiting for that quote unquote north turn. But this thing's dipping. Yeah, it's still dipping south. Ay, ay, ay. Excuse me. And this thing out in the Pacific shouldn't be too bad. It looks like it rises up above the 20-degree line and then just dissipates, which you'll see right here, right now. That would be a hurricane right there, and then 980, 990, and then gone. Anything that goes above the 20-degree north line here, especially in the Pacific, because the Pacific water's cold right here, you're not going to see hurricanes. And if you do, it's very rare. All right, guys. Well, listen, this is what I'm going to do. It's 9:27 right now. I'm going to cut this one short because I want to get this uploaded so other people can watch it without having to wait 3 hours. And then I'm going to try to get back on at like 10:15 for another update so we can run it through the 11 o'clock update and see what they have to say about that. So I want to take this time to thank every single one of you for coming in here and checking this out. Those of you that sent money, you did not have to do that. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. Um, Thank you for saying hi to my mom. She just told me how much she loved that. All sorts of good things. So that's what we do on this channel. We do good things. We keep people informed, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So uh, thank you guys again. And like I said, I'm going to cut this one for now, and then we're going to get back to it, and we're going to answer some more questions. So thank you very much, guys. We're going to talk very soon.